Hey, Anand, happy to have you on the Education Next podcast. And this space is all about sharing and having a conversation around what's happening, what are you doing, what is something that you're excited about in education. So let's begin and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm also happy that you're excited about the kind of education we're building. Um, so when we spoke earlier, we spoke about it, right? A little bit of like how can we make education more in line with how the brain learns, scientific
Mm,
research on how the brain learns, and how to make it more relevant for what's needed in the real world.
mm,
That's been the two problems that we started like Stay Curious for, and that's been what I've been working on for the last 4 years now. So it's a
mhm,
YC company with a mission to make education such that it's more relevant for the real world and more in line with principles of brain science. And like we discussed, we just launched our full school this year.
mhm,
So it was an after-school program for a while to do the R&D to
mhm.
make it happen. But yeah, would love to like dig in deep. Whichever directions you're most curious about, we can like yeah
Yeah,
dive into.
so see, Anand, I came to understand more about education maybe 7, 8 years back when I was trying to understand what I'm trying to do with my son, especially. And, it all accumulates, your experiences and everything accumulates. And every year it was something new that I was learning till a point that I came here where, and now I started looking at education very differently than how I was learning, right? And that helped me understand more and more. And it's just like a rabbit hole. The more deep you go into it, you every day you're surprised by the kind of things you can learn. I was not a great learner when I was a child, but sad for Adi, I've become very curious about learning now. Uh, so
That's
you
very
meet a
interesting.
lot of parents, I understand, considering your school and your alternate educational space. So what changes are you seeing in new parents that you meet?
Yeah. Nice question, actually. It's been a while for me also, about 10 years now. So
Mhm,
initially, I was interacting a lot more with students, and my
mhm,
age was also much closer to students I was dealing with.
mhm,
I was dealing with 11th and 12th students.
mhm,
And I started it at 2022 when I was 22, so it's very
mhm,
close.
mhm,
And now I deal more with parents, also with students a lot, but
mhm,
I almost rarely interacted with parents because I'm talking to students who are 11th and 12th back in the day.
mhm,
And I hardly am interested in building like when I think of alternative, one way to think about it is, hey, is this for parents or students who don't want the traditional system because they can't handle it or something? I rarely encounter such folks. I encounter more folks who are not having an issue with their ability to cope with it. They have issues with the education model itself. So
mhm.
the typical parents who I see more often are those who are interested in education for some reason or the other. They might have been teachers in the past, so they have seen it.
Correct.
They like, hey, I've seen it inside. The emperor is naked. Either that, or folks who have had some chance to grow in their careers, travel across the world, and they come back and go, it's not the same. So changes I'm seeing are definitely. A lot of parents tell me that hey, this JE story, NEET story, etc. is, I mean, it's clearly oversaturated.
Mhm,
I'm not really sure that that's kind of what I want my child to do. Run that rat race and prepare for some competitive exam at some point. A lot of parents tell me that that's not what they're looking for explicitly. So they're not too worried about, oh my God, what happens if my child, they anyway have to go write this entrance exam. I hear that a lot. I hear parents much more mindful of their child's mental well being. They're
mhm,
like, hey, forget the future, what happens, that's fine. Today's mental well being is, I can
mhm,
see it happening. So I see that there's a lot of awareness and care about it. It's another
mhm,
one I see. And like there's a lot of emphasis on practical learning. Like they want it to be like practical. They want it to be actually
mhm,
helping in the real world, whatever the child's learning, and not just for like exams
mhm,
anything is possible. One last trend is also there's more openness to kind of remote learning because a lot of people for whom remote work worked. For a lot of
correct.
parents, they kind of became kind of free physically. They could just travel geographically. One of my friends, she educates her child from Goa. The
Mhm,
child goes to like a really top IB school, but she was like, when it was online, that was
mhm,
amazing. I could be in Goa and my child could like get this. I just
mhm.
wish they didn't open back. So I started hearing stuff like that as well.
Mhm,
She's like, I can never get that lifestyle here. But these are the changes that I'm
mhm.
seeing. Yeah.
I think it's more like exploration. Or people want to explore and see and learn as they learn, as their kids learn as well. And like you said, the way remote working came, the same way educational setup and everything moved from traditional models to remote models as well. And many became successful, many did not become successful, but at least parents could feel that there are other ways to do this as well. And like I read some articles during COVID that some of the teenagers were doing really well when they were um, when they were at home, because they were not distracted, they had more time to focus. And those kind of articles, when I was reading back then, helped me realize that lot can happen when children are, because not every system cannot suit everyone, I feel, right? Everybody will have different way of learning and living. With that, I want to learn more about Stay Curious and what are you doing with Stay Curious.
Yeah, I've had opportunities to answer this in various forms to various people. If I were to summarize it in the shortest way, it's a virtual school that we are building. That
Hmm.
is like some kind of a remote working model. I like to like call it like don't think online school, think remote working for students to be solving three problems. I'm solving three problems. I don't want to boil the ocean, like solve every problem in education. The first is that the curriculum is not being done in a way today in
Hmm.
traditional systems that actually maps to the real world. Problem
Hmm.
number one, how do we revamp the curriculum? And the core thesis we have is that education is not failing at the vision layer or the policy layer or the board layer, which board is, it actually is failing at the implementation layer where who's the person actually dealing with your child? Where is the time going? What's the content or resources they are using? That's the layer. So I believe that we should treat education less as a social problem and more like an engineering problem, and
Hmm.
treat it like, hey, if you solve it, it changes. And so the first problem we're solving is can we set aside enough time to
Hmm.
focus on the skills and knowledge needed for the
Hmm.
real world? That's problem number one. And can we train the teachers to do that rather than just constantly do rote memorization of the traditional subjects? So problem one, curriculum is not real world enough. Problem two is the methods in school are too bookish and theoretical, as we all know. It's a 1 is to 30, even in IB, it's a 1 is to 25 kind of environment. And so we're breaking that to make it a very practical workplace like environment. Imagine your child's a fresher and
Hmm.
they just go to office with seven other kids. They have a manager, a team lead. The managers call their coach. And so the idea is to give them work X for 8 years by the time they're a teenager, but they never
Hmm.
finish high school. So they have, this is the evidence body of work. This is my proof that I can do data science and proof that I'm a collaborator, proof that I'm curious. So that third is the mental well-being. It's Finland inspired mental well-being support systems, which I think that now that we know it's valuable, like having one-on-ones with your coach where you can talk about how you feel heard, have a tribe of like the seven others. They're not your competition. And last is like have mental health actual training. So long story short, if you have these three problems, which we think are the top three, and if you create a model from scratch, first principles, and build a school, that's what Stay Curious Neo School is. It's kind of like
Hmm.
this creature that's trying to figure out what build model would get built
Hmm.
if we only try to reach learning outcomes
Hmm.
and not try to do every other thing that schools are trying to do today. And I think it's a mediocrity bundle. We're trying to break that.
Hmm. With that, I think other thing that comes to my mind is it's not just that the school have remained same. It's also that the learners have changed, and the way the way we are exposed to internet has completely changed, right? So, what do you think about learners? The kind of learners you meet.
Yeah, okay, that's been the most inspiring reason why I thought we can totally pull this off. Like you say,
Mhm.
right? What was scarce before, information, has become abundant, and we are facing the
Correct.
same thing we faced in calories or food. It was super scarce, and we used to load up on certain kinds of food. This happened like some time ago. And then when food suddenly became surplus, the total mental model has to change now, right? I think the
Mm.
same things happen in information. What used to be scarce, stored in some teacher, you have to go to the school to hear that teacher tell you. That's the first time you'll hear it. That's none of that's true anymore. The learners, they are actually facing an opposite problem. There's like so much information overload, and they're learning how to like
Mm.
what's trustworthy information and
Mm.
how would I learn whatever I need to learn in the future. So they are much more aware of that.
Mm.
In some ways, when I talk about this form of schooling to children, they're like, this is obvious, dude, we should just do this. Partly, one of the students told me two things. One of them was like, hey, um, I learned more in such methods than I do in 7 hours of traditional schooling. So they are, what I'm observing is they're more self-reflective than I remember
Mm.
being at that age. I don't know why. So I know that they have access to technology, more info, all that's true. But I also noticed they are more self-reflective. What I would have had in eighth or ninth grade, I see a lot of fifth graders doing. I don't
Mm.
know why. Seconds that they are a lot more open to disconnecting learning from schooling than
Mm.
if some 10% of my when I was studying was like that. I think it's 50% now. They're all like, yeah, of course, right? That we do for schools. This is our learning. It's more obvious to them, and I don't know why that is the case. It's just There's just more awareness and more access to information, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, even I feel it's more awareness, and I think the idea of it, it's also coming from a lot of place. I think the kind of environment they have at home, the kind of discussions they are having at home. And do you believe that, young people, children or kids, I don't know, they like to be more, because you are doing that, you are, practicing that and stay curious. So do you think they like to take more responsibilities and they'll want to be more adult-like? Do you feel that?
Yeah, totally. So, in all of my experience teaching, the main thing I learned is that, and Sal Khan also says it again and again, a 6-year-old never likes to be talked to like a 6-year-old. And
Mm.
Fred Rogers, who's, I don't know if you're familiar with Fred Rogers, are you?
No,
Um,
not yet.
he's this a person who ran a children's show for early children for about 45 years in the US. They made
Mm,
a movie with him. Tom Hanks starred in the movie. So he
mm,
says that the biggest gift that children almost never get is honesty, but very in a gentle way. It's like, so a lot of times what I've observed with these children is that they want to be treated with the kind of respect that we treat another adult with, um,
mm,
where their views are heard. And
mm,
in my fourth, fifth graders and all, I dealt with only in the last 4 years. Okay, I thought that's too young for me. I may not. I was because I come from a higher school, a higher age group. But the main thing I learned is I felt like I'm going scuba diving. They have really deep emotions underneath the
mm,
surface. They like even 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds. They talk about really deep things. They
mm,
when a person engages with them, just like, hey, I'm talking to you and you're talking to me, like two intelligent people just wanting to share. The moment they can see somebody's talking to them like that, I've had some of the most stimulating conversations, um, including asking the student, hey, you're so like so reflective with me one on one. Why do you sometimes in the class go like he was one of those students who used to even
mm.
he was like he gave me an answer. I'm quoting this alone because it'll blow your mind. Like it blew mine. He was like, you know what, Anand, I do that because sometimes I want to behave like a child. Do you understand?
Oh,
Like
no, you know what? Adi dad tells me that. And
isn't that crazy?
I have asked him the same question sometimes. Why do you go crazy sometimes like dancing? He's like, Ma, I'm a child. I was like, what? Now, how could I not think about it?
Yeah, it's so I'm so happy to hear this happening because when he first said it, he was like, I was actually genuinely mind blown because he was in fourth grade or something when he said that, and
Mm,
because he was asking me a lot of deep questions, and like you are right. I think that there's a way in which we commonly talk to them,
mm.
which kind of is like, hey, how are you? But actually, they don't like it. In the name of
Yes.
being sweet, like you don't want to
Mm,
be strict. What do you do? The opposite is not like, hey, like kind of like cloyingly sweet. But the best is to just engage with them like you would. I've even been honest with them when things don't go well. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really tired right now when I'm coaching them, and they're actually okay with that. I can
mm,
sometimes tell them, hey, you know what? I don't know if I'm doing a good job today.
mm.
Can you like give me like so anything that goes with an adult goes with them in my opinion. Yeah, and I think that they appreciate that a lot. That's one thing they don't get. They get it more rarely than I thought they would. It seems to be rare.
Yeah, it is because actually, I think because nobody has told us how to parent, to be frank. I mean, I don't know. Some people might go really crazy trying to understand what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, trying to research everything. But at the same time, many of the parents and many of us, sometimes we struggle. We don't know because we were brought up in a very different era in different ways. And now things have started moving really, really fast. And that's why. But the more I read about, how millennials are doing as parents, I understand that everybody wants to seek out. Most of them want to seek out. I can't say everybody, of course. They are learning. They are asking questions. They are researching, from the kind of all the apps that started coming, from baby center to all those things, at what time what development is happening, and all this research started coming, and parents were literally gawking at it. I want to know, I want to understand more. And I think that is helping more parents to come out and ask the right questions, and uh, being okay to fail and struggle, because we cannot know everything. And now that yeah, say.
Just want to add something when you mentioned that. You'd asked me a question a few minutes ago, right? Like, what are you noticing in parents? And I said a few things, but what you said right now was something I noticed the most. The
Hmm,
humility that I see in so many of them saying, you know what, I actually think that also tell us a few things of what to do and how to communicate better, how should I appreciate at home. That's been a thing because when you mentioned it, it just struck me. It's been something that I'm genuinely like I find very refreshing. And they seem to be genuinely curious, very humble about just knowing that, hey, there's probably a better way to do this, and I want to be open-minded. I'm willing to put time and effort into that part, even though they may not have time to actually work with the child on the learning itself. That's like a long task, but at least in being able to communicate better with their child, how to do that better, how to be there for them emotionally better, those kind of questions come with a lot of humility. But yeah, that was an interjection. You were saying, yeah.
Yeah. So I completely forgot what I was saying. So I'll just say something else now.
All
So
good, all good.
this all this kind of now that the more I read, I understand there is a rise of homeschooling, especially in US. There are places where it's like 300% rise. More people are choosing to homeschool. More people are trying to exploring option of unschooling. They are moving away from the cities. They are exploring in forest. They are learning from the forest, and some kids are learning in farms, and all these different things are happening. This is like a, I don't know if it's trend is the right word to catch up, but it's more like people want to go back to what was there before, like the hunter gathering style of mixing with people, learning not just horizontal uh, learning scale, it's also vertical. People are learning from each other. So what do you think of that?
Ah, okay. So, do I think the current traditional model is not scientific and not sufficiently well researched, which wastes a lot of time? Does it teach relevant things? It doesn't do so well. Does it have mental health effects on many of the children? Yes. Now, on the other side, I think that the parents who are doing this, I think, are observing that and they're able to see the negatives of that. And I think that's great. Now, in the alternatives that we consider, I think I would see it case by case.
Mhm.
I'll have to look at the specific model that's the proposed alternative to evaluate it. And for a lot of the models, I've observed that you were saying, right? Like there's a lot of focus on what's happening outside the child's brain.
Mhm.
But I know that what really matters is what's happening inside. Like, so you can now put them in a farm and then, or you can put them in a we work like office, or you can put them at home. I think, or in school, by the way, we can just do this in school building as well. I think what really matters for learning, which is essentially rewiring of the brain, is what's happening inside and what kind of activities are they thinking about? What are they thinking about? So if
Mhm.
they're in a farm and they're thinking about what if two balls fall and which will fall first and what happens in space, they learn physics. They can do
Mhm.
the same thing in a classroom. Uh, but if they are doing something else,
Mhm.
um, where they're just being lectured at in a classroom or in a farm, I don't think it's going to make a difference. The second concern I've had, um, I'm obviously acknowledging the positives of homeschooling. I'm straightly jumping to the what I've sometimes been worried about, especially in unschooling,
Mhm.
which has been I don't think, for example, that the knowledge areas that a child should know can be too child-led by definition, because how do you know what
Mhm.
you don't know until you like know it, right? So
Correct.
some amount of curiosity creates knowledge, but some
Mhm.
amount of knowledge only can even create curiosity in that subject, right? So
Mhm.
there is just no way to solve that problem. And I see that the metaphor there is more like nutrition.
Mhm.
So the main challenge I would say I foresee for such parents is there a balanced meal where proteins and fats and everything is
Mhm.
there? And
Mhm.
in that model, I sometimes, if my child loves fat or loves protein, so let's just load up with proteins. But then there might be some fiber needed, some vitamins needed, just a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's the other one. And yeah, but overall, do I like it? I do, because I do think it's time to call the emperor naked, because I think this is how it starts, right? When a system doesn't work and most people are aware of it and they're not afraid of the outcomes, they start DIYing it. And DIYing is
Mhm.
actually a sign that there are enough people who are able to see that it's not meeting the outcome. So I'm in love with the movement and I care about it. That's why I'm calling out what to watch out for when we do it. Like focus completely on what's happening inside,
Mhm.
which is what are they thinking about, and the knowledge areas being clearly picked up so that we're not creating any
Mhm.
deficiencies in this process.
I think it's really important to have such conversations because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and then when you hear all this different kind of diverse conversations, and you pick up things from everywhere, right? It's not just about following someone's path, or it's not just about reading a book and changing your life forever. It's like how everything fits into your life. It's how what you will be organizing so that there can be a balance, right? And some people might go extreme, some people might choose to be here, some there, but I think, like you said, the idea of DIYing it and calling it, uh, I like to call it more like an exploration, because one thing always leads to the other. For example, I might not be happy with the traditional system, and then I might choose to take any online schooling, or then I might feel my child is going in a very particular direction, and then I might like to have a coach for my child. And the I think the best thing about it is now you can do it. The fear that I oh my god, my child has to be in this popular school, otherwise I don't know what I will do. I will take loan, or I will struggle to to any extent so that my child can live in this school, but my entire life here is a mess. I cannot handle my finances. We are struggling, my child is not happy, and there I think the balance is going away. So I really enjoy when you can balance everything, life and learning, such that it's all life centric, not just somewhere you have put too much your focus on academics, and then everything starts breaking down somewhere. And it happened with a lot of people in my generation, where um, they lost complete uh, touch with their families. They thought that because they are learning and because they are somewhere now, they lost that that relationship with families, and they don't recognize themselves a lot. And I think with now I think it's possible that you can change or ask questions, and you can change the kind of learning or living that you want for your kid. So have you noticed that shift in our generations? Maybe you might be a generation or two later, I don't know, but do you see that?
So I don't have a child yet, but I
Mm,
definitely am in the age where I can. So
mm,
do I? Yes. So I belong to the millennial kind of generation. I'm bang in between. So I also think about this as the revenge of the 90s kids, what I'm building in some ways, or the millennials. What I mean by that is I could see so many of my friends, so a lot of my people who joined my school as well are not much older than me. They're like 3 years, 4 years, sometimes older than
mm,
me, maybe five. Especially if they're moms and if their dads may be slightly older. But and so what we see is that there are millennial parents who don't want to buy this bulk deal. They have enough of their they've seen the industry, they've grown, they understand. They're even recruiting people at from all these so-called top costs. They've been there, they've kind of seen it. So it's not this abstract thing they're worried about. They've seen it. So they
mm,
understand what really matters. So they're able to question the exact thing you mentioned, which is, hey, how do I want to get what I want out of this? Like, should I buy this entire bulk deal? Maybe I get a piece of it. Maybe I send my. There are various, like you said, it's a spectrum. Therefore, they might decide to put their child in a traditional school, but one that gives very low load, and their
mm,
USP is like low homework and all that. And I've spoken to a lot of parents who are over there. They're like, so I have time for these after school programs, time with me, and so on, all the way to like homeschooling, etc. But the problem statement, like you say, is that millennial parents, a lot of them are particular that they don't want to repeat what was done to them in the name of education. There are a lot like that. There are a
mm.
few who are like, hey, take it work for me. How bad did I turn out? There are some
Correct.
like that, but there are a lot of people who are like, I don't want to repeat what happened to me. It did
Mm,
work for me. And yeah, so I think that they're then trying to figure out solutions
mhm,
actively. So they're being very active about it, not very passive about it.
mm. One thing that you mentioned is about many of the parents have seen it all, like been there, done that, and uh, now there's this realization that I didn't learn to build my own venture. I didn't learn to do this. I would have had I had this realization earlier, I would have learned to make a skill that would have helped me more being more independent. So I want to discuss a little more about what do you think about the importance of building skills early that can help you be more independent. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I actually, personally, I feel it's one of the most important things we can teach because it's what's called meta skill, where
Mm,
it's like teaching someone to fish rather than giving them fish, right? This falls in that domain. And it's personally what I find most exciting to teach, to the point where I wanted to at some point just teach that and nothing else. And then I later realized that okay, it is to add good to add a few other things. And in fact, Khan Lab School, which Khan Academy has in the US, where Sal Khan's kids and other people's kids go to, they in fact track fundamentally the independence level of children as their primary kind of one of the primary ways in which they grow in the school, and it's
mm,
actively instructed. And there's a belief that a lot of these things the world teaches.
mm,
Actually, I'm against that. the world doesn't teach too many things without some kind of direct intervention and some help, right? So practice makes permanent, not perfect. So about this independence, it can be taught as methodically as, say, physics can or trigonometry can. We've somehow accepted that those can be taught. So yes, super important. Particularly this independence bit, the self-learning, how to learn something on your own independently, how to know when to ask for help. This is something I struggled with till 27, 28. I didn't know, so I was good at like doing alone tasks, but I didn't
Mm,
know if I'm stuck. When is it appropriate to ask? So my issue used to be I'll wait too long. I did not
mm,
know that I can ask. So it can go both ways, right? So I was an only kid. I mostly spent my time alone. I was one of those kids for whom remote working would have worked. I never understood how to learn in a classroom ever.
mm,
Like I never did. I would just
mm,
wait for it to be over, learn in the summer break. Even in college, summer break alone in the room is how I know how to learn.
mm,
But that also causes issues of not knowing how to collaborate very well.
mhm,
So this independence also comes with those. How to like take a new topic, how to sift through the bullshit material. I'm sorry, but that comes first at you because that's the most marketed material, and then how to go towards the good stuff. Things like these can be taught in a graded way, and I think it should be taught young because I think students' full-time job ends up being to learn.
mhm,
And one of the things to know is how to learn that independently, how to learn that in a way that is effective. That builds a
mhm,
lot of confidence for them. Like a lot of lecturing on you can learn anything doesn't do much. Showing
mm,
them the tricks and the techniques, and they're like, oh, cool, I can learn anything is what's reliable. So super important. Right? I think it's probably way up there as the top one, two skills. Just
mm,
close competition is emotional resilience and just understanding your own emotions. And
mhm,
that also can be taught very methodically. It's like, how to become aware, how to find the cause, how to like manage it. When people taught this to me, and I want to be vulnerable and admit this here, I learned this maybe when I was 28. And
mhm,
I really wish I'd learned, particularly the emotions one. I had a coach manager at Khan Academy who told me, Anand, you treat emotions as an obstacle to life, and we'll see what we can do about it. I thought, of course they are. Like, what do you say? I could over the last like 3, 4 years, I've learned that oh my god, this
mm,
is how you're supposed to deal with your emotions, and
mhm,
I personally think that it would have made a very big difference even to 10-year-old Anand. I'm pretty sure it would have. So these two are like the top two skills. Immediately after would be like social skills, like knowing how to both talk and work with people in a way that's like it's and again then be taught methodically, and then maybe the last fourth one I would pick is like critical thinking or problem solving, where um, it's not about getting information, it's not being fed with so much calories. Take
mhm,
information as calories. That's a good way to switch your model. Like you
mhm.
wouldn't think, oh, the child's having eating good only today. No, you don't think that way, do you? But I still think we're yet to update that in information. Oh, any information is good, right? So in that
Mhm,
world where the critical thinking part and do they know how to sift is probably what's really important. So these four skills they can track very early on. I think it
mhm,
compounds. It's like a bank account. So knowledge matters in these. So I'll
mhm,
tell you why I think it matters early on. Intelligence matters a lot less compared to prior knowledge. So prior
mhm,
knowledge is like the ocean around which more hooks are added. So
mhm,
a child who looks very fast at some age usually has better prior knowledge than better IQ. But the prior
mhm,
knowledge might be because they were smarter or something. But let's not debate that. The point is that when you have larger prior knowledge, which is the island onto which more things can be added, it starts compounding really fast. And a
mhm,
lot of these skills I told are actually knowledge in disguise many times. It's about
mhm,
knowing some fundamental things that help you have these skills better. Like knowing how emotions work actually does help you manage emotions better. Just like knowing how physics, Newton's laws work, help you solve problems better. So starting early, I think, is good for two reasons. One, this reason. Second is these also form neural habits a lot because, like I said, practice makes permanent, not perfect.
mhm,
Practice without feedback, without proper knowledge, actually just makes the wrong things permanent. It's like
mhm,
I learned flute on my own. My
mhm.
coach was like, "Hey, what you've learned, I'll take 2 months to first make you unlearn. Then only I can start like teaching." So there is some of those risks as well, but that's like why I think both early and
Mhm,
well defined is good in these domains.
mhm. Yeah, I think I contemplate with these things a lot. I try to understand, how to build that kind of self-awareness, how we can share what, sometimes I might fail, sometimes you might fail, and it's okay. And those kind of discussions, I try to cover a lot of stories on my blog related to such thinking and such kind of reflection that a child can have. And it amazes me that Adi successfully uses these terms a lot.
Nice.
And
I'm so happy to hear that. That's the proof that they're actually transferring it to the real
mm,
context. Yeah, it's so nice to hear.
and basically and especially when he can especially behavior reading, I think, understanding others is also very important. And sometimes you get very irritated with how others behave, but I try to tell Adi, or we discuss, how other people behave and why they are doing and why it should not affect us. And those kind of discussions are fun discussions, because then I can see how he makes his own judgments, or he makes his own conclusions about, maybe this is happening, that's why that person is behaving, it should not affect me. So those kind of discussions are amazing with kids, because sometimes they will also tell you why something is happening that you would have not thought about it. So I think, like, I don't know, it's life skill, I think, to be able to reflect and understand others as well, and your place and others place, because like you said, social skills are very important. And sadly, though we spent a lot of our time in schools, but still I think most of us could not understand how people work, how we can collaborate, how we can do teamwork, and how we can it's not just about competition about you versus me, because school always tells you to hide your own work, right? They never tell you that, share, learn from each other. What you might know that other person, because I was in a boarding school all my life, we only knew how to collaborate and learn, because I remember Hindi was very difficult for me to read or motivate myself, so my friend would just read the story, and I would just go and write whatever I would understand from that story. And I would never read, because the stories were so long, the literature stories. She would just sit and read the entire big story,
Oh,
you
you
know,
read it? She would read it out for you.
for a group of people,
Oh,
right?
nice. So it's like one friend teaching all the other friends.
So she
Yeah.
would just read it, and she would be very strict that now when I read, don't disturb. So we'll just listen. And I have passed many of my exams because of these friends I had, because somebody was very good in physics, and somebody was very good with Hindi, and I could write, but it was very tough for me to read. It was boring for me. So I remember those things. And sadly, I don't know, see, hostels they have their own, good parts and bad parts, but I think we can pick what worked, what did not. It was great talking to you, Anand. I think um, we can have some future conversations around a particular topic that would resonate, with you or with our audience. But thank you for letting us know what is stay curious, and I we will leave the links below for people to come and check it out. What is it all about? And so, yeah, thank you for being here, and see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just love the questions and I just loved how naturally our interaction just flowed. And thanks a lot for spreading the word. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alan. See you again. Bye bye.
Bye.